In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 crucial moves in the backswing that is going to help your consistency massively. Because if you're doing these 3 moves, you're going to be playing pretty good golf. You're going to be hitting the ball quite nice and straight, and you're going to be having good contact with the ground as well. So I'm Jonathan Chown with JChownGolf. Let's dive right into it. So let's get into the very first crucial backswing move that you need to do to play more consistent golf. And that is having a full centered turn. So what that means is getting a nice full rotation of your backswing and staying very much on your center there. So if that ball's in the middle of the stance, you can imagine you staying on top of that golf ball, or a line going through the middle of your body, and you're staying and rotating on top of that line. Now, why that's important? One, the centered part of it. If I'm staying centered as I turn, it's going to make it so much easier then for me to shift into the downswing, the appropriate amount to then hit ball and turf to shift low point forward. So if you're someone out there who comes off the golf ball, you'll notice you'll hit a variety of different strikes, and most of them not good. You'll hit, some real fat ones. So I could shift off the golf ball, I'll hit it fat just like that. Luckily I'm hitting off a mat, so it wasn't too embarrassing. I could even, because my low point will begin behind the ball, top and thin it. So when we hang back, it's harder for us to shift our weight forward. So that means it'd be harder for us to hit ball and turf because our low point will be too far behind the golf ball. But if we turn nice and centered, we barely have to move at all onto that lead side to be able to hit ball and turf. Makes it so we have less movement that we have to do to be able to hit a good golf shot. So rather than trying to get weight back and then weight forward, let's get that pressure and that weight into the trail heel and then shift ourselves forward. It'll be way more consistent. You'll be able to hit ball and turf way more often. So the second good benefit to having full turn is getting more depth at the top of the backswing. So depth to your hands and depth to your left arm. So what that means at the top of the backswing, that means the deeper my hands are, the more depth they have, more behind me, the less depth they have, more on top of me. So when I rotate in the golf swing, my hands will always follow my rotation. So if I rotate and get that good full turn, my hands are naturally going to get quite deep there, a little bit behind me. We don't mean back here, we mean just a little bit here to where they're kind of more in line with my ankles or heel region. So why that really helps is because if I have that more depth, now the club is going to fall on path in the downswing. When I rotate again in my downswing rotational move, the club is now going to fall either on path or slightly into out. Because why a lot of golfers struggle with a slice shot is because they don't have enough depth to the top, they turn, then the club gets thrown out in front of them. But if we have that good full turn, that good depth there we go. Now we're in a good spot. Now we can turn through that golf ball with a good swing path. So for the full turn part of this, there's going to be 2 parts from this full turn that's going to help you massively. Now, of course, full turn means you're going to be producing more club head speed. You're getting more turn here, more coil up. That means you're going to then really unwind it more on the golf ball. So if you're a golfer who can't really get that much turn from the traditional only turning your shoulders way, free up that hip turn. So what I want you to do from there, really make sure you're turning those hips back. Feel like someone's grabbing your trouser pocket and pulling it back and around. If you can turn your hips more, you can turn your shoulders more. If those hips turn, the shoulders will too. And if you feel like as well that you need to lift up that left heel to be able to get that big turn, go for it, absolutely do it. Look at the players back in the day, they all did that. And if you feel like you need even more help, flare out that back foot. That will then open up the range of motion of your hip joint. That will give you, again, fuller turn there. So a great drill to do for this, to get that centered and full turn, is grab your golf bag. Put that golf bag in front of you a little bit, as you can see out, really opposite my trail leg here. Then we get an alignment stick, and we drop this alignment stick out of the bag here. So now if I turn and I'm not centered as I turn, you're going to see how my head is going to hit this alignment stick here. So I want to keep my head very, very centered whilst I'm getting that big full turn. Like we said, that's going to increase your chance of hitting ball and turf consistently. The full turn is going to give you 1 more distance from getting that more coil up, and 2, you're going to be getting more depth to your hands at the top of the backswing, controlling your swing path, less slicey of a shot. So let's hit one there, really getting that nice big full centered turn. So the second most crucial thing you need to do in your backswing to really help you play consistent golf. And you'll see every single top player in the world do this. And that is, as soon as they are turning, they are keeping their lead side low. So they are maintaining their tilt to the ground. So that is your inclination to the ground, that left side being low with your shoulders and your hips. So why that is such an important thing is, one, it's a very kind of basic way you can view it is the ball's on the ground, we're rotating to that golf ball. Golf is a rotational sport. So we need to be tilted towards the ground to hit that ball and turn on that ball on the ground. Now, unlike other rotational sports, obviously a few where that ball you're interacting with the ground, but let's say you're doing a batting sport. You do not need tilted shoulders doing a batting sport because you're hitting that ball out the air. Hitting the ball off the ground, we need tilted shoulders. So let's say we didn't have tilted shoulders and hips here. If, let's say we did a very common foul, a lot of amateurs do, lifting up their lead side, coming up to the top of their swing. Now, if you're doing that and you're keeping that lead side high through the golf swing, you're going to miss the golf ball completely. You're going to swing right over the top of that ball. So what your body would do from there, once it lifts up as a reaction in a downswing, it will regain its tilt again. Because regain the tilt, you have to do it because the ball's on the ground when you stay tilted to the ground to be able to get it. So look what happens when I do that. See how I then will steepen the shaft. So we might see a player at the top of their backswing, very laid off. We might see them have to reorganize their hands and arms to get it up to a good, relatively okay spot. But then we will always see them regain their tilt again to hit that golf ball. Steep shaft, you'll cut across it. You'll probably just hit very, very poor strikes like that, a toppy one out there. So really simple here. You'll see, like we said, all top players do this, and you'll see all top players practice this to some extent as well. Rory McIlroy is one who practices this quite a bit. You'll see him sometimes on the driving range. Maybe they might have a little bit on the golf you're watching where they're watching players on the range. You'll see Rory do this a lot. He'll grab a club, put it across his shoulders. He'll turn a good few times before he hits that ball. And he's trying to get that butt end of the club to point at the golf ball. And then what he'll do, he'll grab his golf club again, maintain that same feel, and then he'll go and hit the shot. Because you've got to know there, if I'm keeping my tilt in that backswing, I then don't have to have any compensating movement in the downswing to be able to reorganize the tilt again. So I'm going to have a more consistent move in my pivot. I don't have to manipulate it in any way. So if I'm doing other things quite well in the golf swing, like my full centered turn we just talked about, I'm going to be maintaining what I've got at that top of the backswing, nicely into the downswing there, hitting more consistent shots. Less moving parts means more consistent there. So either club across the shoulders, really getting some good turns here to practice this movement, or you could go and get into, let's say, opposite a wall here. Now what you do opposite a wall, you stand about half a club's distance away from that wall, put the club across your shoulders, get into golf posture, turn and miss that wall. All you need to do here, because if you start to lift up that lead shoulder, you are going to hit that wall there. So we want to turn and keep that club from hitting the wall. And like we said, like what Rory does, do that a good few times, whether it's at the wall or at the golf ball, getting it to point at the ball, feel it a few times, and then hit the ball with that same feeling, keeping that shoulder tilt. Keeping that shoulder tilt, like we said, it'll maintain things a lot easier from what you've got at the top of the backswing into the downswing, give you better contact, maintain shaft angle, and will help you to rotate way better in the golf swing as well. Now, the third most crucial thing you need to have in your backswing that will help you play more consistent golf, and that is having a square club face. So probably a lot of you watching this, you're thinking, oh, he's going to talk about square club face again on the first one. No, I left it to the last one this time. But it's such an important one. That's why I talk about it so much in my channel. Because if you can get that club face as square as you can get it, as early as you can get it, it's going to be so much easier to hit straighter golf shots there. So really from there, like I always say when I talk about club face, there's loads of reasons to why you could have an open club face in your golf swing. Could be grip, could be too weak, it could be you're rolling your forearms, it could be you're cupping your lead wrist. So I'll put a video up here for 3 reasons to why you open up the club face in there. But really the most common one movement-wise that I see golfers do is rolling their lead forearm to start off their backswing. So my left forearm rolling in this fashion to where my underside of the forearm is pointing down towards the ground like this. So you can see when I do that, happens to the club, It travels on the inside, the club face opens, the hands shoot out here. So there's a lot more negative things in this than just that open club face for sure. So this is why it's really the most important one that I don't want you to do in your swing. So really from there, when we're like that and going through our swing, we know as we're coming down the downswing there, we've got to really square up this club face, because if we maintain everything, we're going to be having it very, very open. So most likely our pivot, our rotation will stop, our hands will flip, we'll get very inconsistent, or from there you might have a cast, or your body might try to organize it by swinging very out to in to match it up with swing path there. So don't want really any of them, to be perfectly honest. So what I want to see you do is a more neutral takeaway here. So let me grab my glove out of my back pocket and I'll show you a very good drill to do for this, which is good for visual feedback here. So when I have my rolly forearm move, where that will open up the club face, if you look at my glove logo here, see where it's pointing now? It's pointing dead up to the sky. So what I want to happen with this glove logo, to have a more passive left forearm move off that golf ball, resulting in a squarer club face, is I want this glove logo now to point slightly down towards the ground, so diagonally down towards that ground there. That's going to give me a way more passive forearm, because as soon as I roll it, it goes up, and you can also see the hands shoot out. So you can also think hands going in, glove logo pointing down towards the ground. You've got a solid, real nice move, forearm movement there that's going to produce a square club face. So then when we swing up and through that movement, so you can do it all one fluid movement, maybe do a few Justin Thomas style kind of takeaway movements here, just as rehearsals, getting that glove logo to point diagonally down towards the ground, and then hit a shot with that same feel. Or you could do it in kind of like Justin Thomas's friend, Ricky Fowler type of drill. So that's where you're getting to shaft parallel to the ground, you're stopping, you're making sure everything's good, and then you're swinging up from there and hitting the ball. So doing that here, getting shaft parallel to the ground, glove logo pointing down, good. Yep, my club's looking good, my hands are looking nice in there, club's matching my spine angle, swinging up and through from there is going to really give you exactly what you want. Now, with that takeaway move, it's going to feel very, very weird when you try to do it, especially if you really roll that forearm. So for us to achieve that nice square club face, with that club face here matching the spine angle, we will really have to actually feel quite extreme. For players who do this movement, who have that real rolly forearm, I tell them to think of the exact opposite when they're doing this. So almost rolling the forearm the other way. So that'll be forearm rotating up towards the sky. So I'll almost be telling them to feel like they're doing a Matthew Wolff style takeaway movement, which would look like this, as we know Matthew's up here. So with Matt, that will give you, thinking Matt's kind of takeaway movement, if you really struggle with the opposite, it would actually get you in a good spot there. Because if you just try and think of a perfect move, normally, you're still going to be slightly rolling that forearm. So that is extreming the feel. If you're struggling with rolly forearm, think of Matthew Wolff there and you'll do a lot better. Anything here, even on any of these 3 points, really think of that extreme feeling. So there we have it. 3 crucial backswing moves that you can apply to your golf swing, and you will be playing some pretty good golf doing it. A good one to build your backswing off of, rather than having a model of a backswing to think of, more specific type of movements you want in there, movement patterns. Whether you will look like, let's say, an Adam Scott at the top of the backswing, you might not be, but if you're getting these movements in there, centered turn, the tilt, square club face, it will still be functioning quite nicely. So if you like this video, of course, click that like button. If you want more golf instruction just like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video. So let's get that backswing in place. Let's play some better golf.